All right, Kelly, we're here to talk about Hulk Hogan, the life that was, the wrestler that was, and not really necessarily the man that was, but we're here to have a little three-part series to talk about the career and the kind of the legacy of Hulk Hogan. We're here first to talk about kind of Hulk Hogan pre-Hulkamania, Hogan before 83 in jumping into the WWF in January 84 and just blowing up. We're going to do that with Bennett, and then we're going to get into the 90s in WCW NWO with Marty Sleeze, the superstar himself, making his YouTube debut. It was electric. We did him before you. But first, when I say Hulk Hogan, Kelly, what kind of comes to mind to you with you?
Well, yeah, if we're just strictly talking about Hulk Hogan, the wrestler, um, like godlike status, right? I mean, as a kid, I wasn't particularly enamored with him. I liked other guys like Tito Santana, Ricky Steamboat, Dynamite Kid, Owen Hart in Calgary, Roddy Piper. But I got into wrestling, right around WrestleMania 2. Hogan was pretty much at his peak then. And I enjoyed, the stuff with Andre and Paul Orndorff, those feuds and stuff. But it wasn't until much later that I really came to appreciate like his 1980s stuff. I had a long period where I couldn't stand Hogan, like the 90s. He took Bret Hart's spot basically at WrestleMania 9. I never forgave him for that, or it took a long time to get over that for me. But then when YouTube came along and I started watching these 80s matches and the angles and stuff, there's a lot of fun stuff, a lot of really great stuff. Unfortunately, in the last 25 years, there was too much Terry Bollea in the news and not enough Hulk Hogan. I guess I'll leave it at that. Honestly, in the last few months, we've been making fun of him a lot on Mystery Titans Theater. Bolea's blunders, it just came up in the last few months. I've kind of, in the last few years, I haven't had much interest in watching classic Hogan. But yeah, the man's dead. So we're here to talk about his legacy as a performer, and specifically, you said, the early years, and I'll shed some light on these early Hulkamania did come around. We'll talk about it in around 82 or so. But yeah, pre-Hulk Hogan, we're going to talk about some other aliases for the man when he first started.
I'm not here to stick up for anything or because I really am indifferent to it. I'm a Hogan fan as a wrestler, as a kid. He's the first memory I ever had, so my eyes are cloudy towards him, and I understand that Terry Bollea and Hulk Hogan are different people, right? One has a 12-inch penis, and the other one has an average-sized penis, as we found, as we found out, right? But
maybe you did.
Hey,
I didn't watch the tapes. I haven't seen any of the sex tapes, so
not secondhand. I'm just going. He said it under oath.
Oh, he's talked about it. Okay.
He said it under oath, right? So.
I see.
But medics were dispatched to the 71-year-old WWE Legends Clearwater, Florida house early this morning, with the operator stating it was regarding a cardiac arrest. I've seen the video of him leaving his house. It's kind of sad that actually exists and that we can see it. But it's just sad. And then he was pronounced dead when he got to the hospital. I know he had probably troubles from a surgery about 10 weeks ago, and it's been a rough road for him. The last public appearance on WWE was in January on the Netflix debut, and it didn't really go so strong. So, I understand the hate. I understand why you would hate him, but we're here to kind of talk about the past and just why he's such a polarizing figure, on why polarizing being the positive part here. When did Hulk break into the business? Summer of 75, was it? Or
no, 77 actually. Okay. Probably about 2 weeks after I was born, actually, if you go by the wrestling data results. He started in Florida, where he was from. But before that, he was a fan of wrestling. He went to the shows in Tampa. He was a big fan of superstar Billy Graham, Dusty Rhodes. They had a big feud in Florida. So you can see, that was kind of like his main influences. He took a lot from both guys. Probably more superstar than Dusty, but the charisma. And Dusty's even mentioned he remembered seeing Hogan in the crowd because Hogan was a tall guy, of course, and he had the look. He just wasn't muscular then, but he had the same long hair, mustache, and all that. So Dusty remembers seeing him in the crowd at matches in Florida and Tampa. So Hogan was a fan. He met the Briscoe brothers in a bar, I believe, and eventually, I think it maybe even been a bar where Hogan was playing with his band, one of his bands, Ruckus,
Metallica?
maybe. Yeah, not Metallica. We could talk about all the lies, the Hogan lies, but yeah, we don't need to do that either. Anyway, yeah, Ruckus, and there was another one. I can't remember what it's called. It had a shorter name. Anyway, I think that's where they met him. He got him. He was obviously, he had the size, maybe he had the look, the presence. So they trained him. Hiro Matsuda specifically trained him in Florida.
Broke his leg, right?
Yeah, apparently broke his leg. I think. Well, Hogan claims it was the first day, as like a test to see if he was man enough to come back or whatever. Who knows if that's true?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, he was trained and he debuted under a mask as the Super Destroyer, which was a name that was used quite a bit. There was quite a few Super Destroyers over the years. I don't think there's any footage. Actually, I'm almost positive there's no footage of that out there of him as the Super Destroyer. And I think that was maybe only a couple months in Florida in 77. And then he went on to like the Gulf Coast, Southeastern in that area, which was a decent territory at the time.
Like Alabama-ish.
Yeah, Alabama. Yeah, Gulf Coast, like northern Florida, I think, the Panhandle, that area. And that's where he used the name Terry Boulder. So he used his real first name. And then that's where he became the Hulk for the first time, or was given the Hulk name for the first time. And he told the story, Hogan did, of being on a talk show with Lou Ferrigno, who played the Hulk on TV, the Incredible Hulk, on TV. But I think people have disputed that, saying there's no record of that ever happening. But he did take the name from Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, because that was a popular TV show in the late 70s. The story that Hogan told was that the host of this show said, "Oh, like they were sitting next to each other. Oh, you're bigger than Lou Ferrigno. You're bigger than the Hulk," and that's how he became the Hulk. But yes, he was using the Hulk nickname, but the Hogan part came a few years later, actually. So there's a footage of a Hogan Andre the Giant arm wrestling match, or whatever you want to call it, a contest from that territory, from Alabama
in late 78, 79.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's like in the studio. Hogan's wearing like brown bell bottoms, from what I remember. Yeah, so they met up very early in Hogan's career, and worked with each other quite a bit. And I think Andre probably opened some doors for Hogan. Andre, liked working with. Yeah, well, he liked working with them. And they were, I think they had like a typical Hogan relationship where they were friends and then they had falling out and then they became friends again, sort of like he had with Savage too later on. So yeah, he did that, and then he went to Georgia and became Sterling Golden in Georgia. And there's footage. Yeah, not a bad name, maybe.
Hulk Hogan's so much better, though.
Yeah, it's true. Sterling Golden. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind it, but anyway, that was
sounds jobberish in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that would have been Hogan's idea. It was probably whoever was booking Georgia at the time, and he wore the long boys in Georgia for kind of the only time. Well, like he would bring those back in the NWO years.
Yeah, but you don't think of it though, right?
Yeah. So they were like green or blue. I guess blue. That's why he had multiple colors. And yeah, there's a match against Bret Hart, Sterling Golden, Bret Hart from Georgia. That's out there. Just a short TV match where Bret was basically a jobber. And there's a few other matches and stuff, but nothing of significance. I don't even know if there's promos. There must be, though. I haven't. There's a lot of Georgia footage out there. If you wanted to go through it, you could find all kinds of stuff that people don't talk about. So then from there, I think the story goes someone who was like a big fan of Hogan in Georgia sent a picture of him to Vince McMahon Sr. or Terry Funk maybe recommended him, something like that. That's how he got on the radar of Vince Sr. And it was Vince Sr. who added the Hogan, because Vince Sr. loved alliterative names. He came up with Sergeant Slaughter, he came up with Bruiser Brody, and he came up with Hulk Hogan. And yeah, the idea was that he was supposed to be Irish, and in New York that would mean something, but yeah, but that was quickly dropped. I don't think that was ever really emphasized much, that he was Irish. It would have been funny if he tried to use Vince Jr. would have tried to make him use a Irish accent.
Turned him into Sheamus and Becky Lynch.
Yeah, gave him a derby and a shillelagh and a little person as his sidekick or something like that.
Oh boy.
That would have been, Hulk Hogan.
Harry Hogan, his little friend, Harry Hogan.
So that's Hulk Hogan. That was late 79.
Yep.
Came in to the WWF just after they rebranded to WWF, not 3 W's in the F. And Freddie Blassie, as we see here, was his manager. He was billed as the fabulous Hulk Hogan right at the beginning.
A lot of squash matches, a lot of 2-on-1 matches.
Yes, a lot of handicap matches to get him over, because he was still pretty inexperienced at this time. But they kind of threw him into the deep end of the pool, because before he started wrestling Andre in the WWF, he wrestled Bob Backlund.
And Tito.
Yeah, and Tito. Yeah, Tito was an early, Ted DiBiase even earlier. His MSG debut, Hogan's MSG debut, in December of 79 was against Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, DiBiase had a video on Twitter today saying that Vince Sr. was like, hey, test this guy. I think I see a big future in him. Let me know what you think about him. I respect your opinion. And then Teddy endorsed him. And then full circle 88, when Teddy endorsed him, when Teddy returned, Hulk was like, hey, thank you for 80, 79. Return the favor to you with the big push in there. So it was, if you haven't seen the DiBiase video, go see it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and DiBiase was just finishing up in the territory at that time. So he was fine doing jobs, putting over a new guy. So that was, like Hogan's first month or so was exclusively with DiBiase, Tito, Dominic DeNucci, quite a lot in the early days. There's several, at least 2.
Johnny Rods.
Yeah, well, DeNucci, there's at least 2 out there. I think they were both from MSG, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, Backlund, pretty early on, April 12th, 1980, at the Spectrum in Philly was the first Hogan Backlund match, at least in Philly. I'm not sure if they wrestled in other cities before that. I want to say they didn't. So quite early on, and that's a really, really good match. Like, that's a legit great match. I don't know, Ryan, if you've ever seen it.
I'm only up to March in 1980 and what I watched.
Okay, well then, you're getting close. It was on one of the Hogan WWE DVDs. I think the first,
may have back in the day, but I like to watch it in time, right? I like to watch it in time because there's a better context, in my opinion, when you watch chronologically.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, like Hogan held up his end of things in that match. It wasn't a total carry job. It goes like a half hour. Backlund was, it was a Backlund match, but yeah, like I said, Hogan held his own. It's really good. And then they had a rematch May 10th in the Spectrum. That's also really good. And both of these, the last I checked, they were easy to come by on YouTube. So everyone,
they're all over the drives that we have too.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to come by.
Yeah. I mean, you're limited with the footage in a lot of ways, of course. But they Hogan and Backlund didn't wrestle each other at MSG for whatever reason. They just worked Philly. So we don't have other arenas with those 2 guys. And then it was like right after that, I think it was the next show in Philly, the June show, where he faced Andre the Giant in the WWF for the first time. And they had quite a lengthy feud.
In 80.
In
Yeah.
80 into 1981. It went, there was some breaks, but still, I mean, there's lots of Hogan Andre matches from that time out
Is the
there.
most famous one the Shea Stadium, where Larry and Bruno had the match when Hogan and Andre
Hogan,
were on the undercard? Is that the most famous one?
drew the house. Yeah, another Hogan live at him and Andre drew the Shea Stadium house, which was like
In August, yeah.
in August. Well, I guess that'd be the most famous because it was on that, like that at that point. That was the biggest card in company history. It's been shown quite a few times, in all kinds of different, like on different videos and stuff. They had a few matches in Philly. They had that, the big one in Shea. They had a TV angle on Championship Wrestling, probably, where Hogan, at the time, his finisher was the Hogan Hammer, which was a running elbow. And in that one, he loaded up the elbow pad with metal or whatever in a match against Andre and hit him. Andre bled. Hogan also body slammed Andre in that match. So, cool. Of course, he did it 7 years before he did it supposedly for
Never
the first
did
time.
It before, brother.
Yeah, well, and then nobody had supposedly body slammed Andre before WrestleMania 3, but of course we know that's not true. So anyway, there was that angle. Then there was a match at Madison Square Garden in September of 1980 with Gorilla Monsoon as the referee. And then their best match by far was March 21st, 1981, back at the Spectrum in Philly. And Hogan was he was in his last month or so with the territory at that time. It's a cool match. Both guys get juice. Hogan takes a clean pin for one of the rare times, at least in the 80s and well into the 90s, of course, too. So that's another one to check out for sure. I put that on a list of top 25 matches, top 25 WWF matches from 1978 to 1987 that I did with Marty Sleeze a few years back.
Coming up later, guys.
Yeah. And so that one's probably the best pre-1984 Hogan match, or maybe my favorite, at least pre-84 Hogan match on tape.
Very cool.
And then it was around that time he signed to make the movie Rocky III. And he even mentions it in one of his interviews at the Spectrum, I think a month before that show or so.
So you think that was the fallout for the WWF at the time?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. Hogan's run is interesting because at the time, usually a heel would come in, work his way up to facing Backlund, have a program with Backlund, and then work his way down and leave, go to another territory. But Hogan worked Backlund, but then stuck around and worked Andre, and then was still hanging him around in early 81 and had a feud with Tony Atlas. So he had 3 programs, which was rare for a heel to have 3 programs.
Well, Backlund's the money, then Andre's the money because he's the attraction, not the champion. Yeah. The Atlas one feels weird to me, now that you say it, right?
Well, it was kind of a two like superhero, physique. Because remember, at this time, this was before steroids went totally crazy and everybody was on the gas. Hogan and Atlas were like, not too many guys looked like them in 1981. They were Greek gods come to life.
And the Greek godness was the draw at the time, right?
So, yeah. So, but that was just the last couple months before Hogan left. Tony Atlas got a couple pins on him.
Interesting. That's weird in retrospect.
Yeah, I know. But Atlas was staying and was a top star, and Hogan was leaving. But Hogan got, even when he his last match against Atlas, he gets his foot on the rope, so he had an out. It wasn't a clean pin. So yeah, like Hogan had an interesting run. It was November of 79 to April of 81. So like a year and a half, basically.
18 months almost, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, there's another story. I don't know if this is a Hogan exclusive story about Vince Sr. not liking that Hogan had agreed to be in Rocky 3, which doesn't make sense. Like, I know he would have had to take time off, but you would think, but I guess
this fake for a senior. What do you think? Is it like,
wouldn't it have been good publicity for the territory, right? To have one of your wrestlers in a movie like that? Rocky 3 was the second highest grossing movie behind E.T. for 1982. It was a huge hit. And the first Rocky movie won Best Picture. I mean, these were big movies, but that speaks maybe to the mindset of someone like Vince Sr.
But in 1982, is there that kayfabe element? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around that time frame. I don't know.
Like I said, there's footage out there of Hogan being interviewed by Cal Rudman, still in the WWF, where he's talking about being cast in Rocky 3. So that was out there, and he was talking about it on WWF TV. So he was leaving. I mean, he was there. He'd been there for a year and a half. I don't think there was much more you could do with him.
It's like piss or get off the pot. You're sticking with Bob. I'm going to kind of go.
I mean, he wasn't going to be, he wasn't considered for the title. He was a strong heel. And in those days, there was still a lot of strong territories he went to, and he went to the AWA.
Turns the good guy goes to the AWA in July 81, right?
Yeah, approximately. Yeah, and he was a heel when he came into the AWA, managed by Johnny Valiant. Yeah, it didn't last long though. I don't know if Vern, I think it was the reactions. Vern was surprised at the reactions Hogan was getting. He was getting babyface reactions. There was, if you look at the footage from his first WWF run, there are definitely Hogan fans in the crowd, but it's not like an overwhelming thing where it was like 50-50 when he wrestled a babyface. But they're definitely, but you were getting into the 80s where the heels started to get cheered more. And Hogan had this unique look. But this was before Rocky 3 came out, so the fans were embracing him before Rocky 3 came out. And because it wasn't long, it was literally like a month or so, maybe 2 months into his AWA run where he turned babyface. And I don't know if there was really an angle. I remember in PWI or in the Aftermags, their story was that Hogan was accidentally booked against a heel. This was like a kayfabe explanation, and then the fans went with Hogan. And that was, after that, he was all the way to the top as a babyface. I don't know how it was exactly played out on TV, but it was a pretty meteoric rise after that in the AWA, being the top draw, even though he wasn't the champ. But yeah, he was a huge babyface, feuded with Nick Bockwinkel for a long time.
82, pretty much, right?
82, well into 83. There was multiple Dusty Finish matches with them where it ended with Hogan winning the belt, or seemingly winning the belt, and then it being reversed on TV.
That's so weird.
A few days later. Yeah, well, that was common.
I get it. I know, but
it would usually end up biting them in the ass because the fans would get sick of that and they'd stop coming to shows because they couldn't trust the booking. So those matches are on tape. The big one is from the Super Sunday card, 1983, April. I want to say the 24th, but I'm not 100% sure on that date. It was at the St. Paul Civic Center. It was like 20,000, maybe. It was a huge crowd.
Okay. That's nothing to sneeze at.
It was essentially a pay-per-view level card. It was for the AWA. They would do shows at Comiskey Park sometimes in Chicago where the White Sox played.
Very Midwest territory.
Oh yeah, I mean they were based
Chicago, Minnesota loop all day, every day.
Milwaukee. Right? They had the whole. Originally, it was Minnesota, Chicago, Milwaukee, Indianapolis. Well, maybe not Indianapolis because Dick the Bruiser was still strong, but there was a relationship there. But then they expanded to Denver, Las Vegas eventually. They went to the coast. They went to San Francisco because that territory had died. They even tried Vancouver once. around 1985, I want to say. Vern was ambitious. They tried LA. Yeah, and supposedly they were in talks with CBS at one point for a special show or something. That I think that's
is this with Hulk under their umbrella and
when
Bachman?
when Hogan was there. Greg Gagne, I think, is the man behind that story. So who knows how true that was? But yeah, they were doing like 1983 was the best year business wise that the AWA ever had, and that was with Hogan on top as essentially, the uncrowned champion the whole time, feuding with Bockwinkel, feuding with Mr. Saito. That was another big feud he had in AWA. Bobby Heenan was in the mix. That's where the rivalry. That was cool that they continued that from AWA, WWF, and then into WCW.
Yeah.
Basically. But it started in the AWA, of course. Heenan was Nick Bockwinkel's manager. And then Dr. D. David Schultz in the AWA in 1983. That was a headline feud that when Hogan went to New York, back to New York, Schultz came with him, and Mean Gene Okerlund came with him. Like, that there was like a huge pipeline. Look at all the talent. Yep. Bobby Heenan, like a few months later, Bobby Heenan was the only one who honored his dates and didn't just split, because Hogan was booked for the main event at the Christmas. They always did a show on Christmas Day at the St. Paul Civic Center, and it was going to be Hogan and David Schultz. And Hogan apparently gave Vern notice about 2 weeks before that he wasn't going to make it, and Vern continued to advertise Hogan to the day of the show. So nobody knew that Hogan wasn't going to be there. We're talking about wrestling, scummy business. Vern Gagne, not the most honorable promoter, perhaps.
Did he think it was a prank or something?
He was pissed. Hogan left him, his biggest star, and was going to New York to become the top dog there. And yeah, so Hogan left Schultz, Okerlund right away, and then Ventura and Heenan a bit later. And
Killer Bees later than that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Brunzell, Blair wasn't in the AWA, but Brunzell was. But yeah, they took a significant amount of talent from the AWA, and they also took a lot of the production crew for the AWA. Oh yeah, and backstage interview guys. That Vince was, totally ruthless with the AWA, because Vince apparently had approached Vern and Greg. They met at an airport in '83, where Vince attempted to buy the territory outright from him, but Vern and Greg refused. They said, "We're doing better business than we ever had. Why would we sell to you?" And then, it seems the story or the legend is that after that, Vince was like, had a total vendetta against the Gagnes. But anyway, back to Hogan. Yeah, so there's tons of AWA Hogan footage out there to watch. There's stuff with Andre and him tagging. There's battle royals. There's all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Not to get too deep into the New Japan stuff, are you any familiar with that? Is there anything you would recommend out of that 80 to 85 kind of blimp run that he would have here and there, off and on?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about it earlier. I was thinking, a lot of people say, and it's kind of more I don't know, not fans of our level, not to be snobby or anything. Yeah. Once you say, oh, Hogan only wrestled when he was in Japan, or he was a good wrestler in Japan. Yeah. And he sucked in the States. But if you look at the footage, Hogan in Japan is not, I couldn't think of any matches that I'd recommend. Not that I've seen everything, but I've seen a lot of Hogan in Japan. He had a match against Dusty Rhodes.
Cronoso was really good.
Which one?
The Hanson match that I did on Cronoso was really
that was later.
That was later on, though.
Right. That's a great match. Yeah. But that was in 1990.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a match against Hanson, singles match anyway, in like the early 80s. I think they crossed paths in tag matches for sure.
So nothing with Fujinami or the Butcher that would kind of...
I remember seeing a match with Hogan and Abby a long time ago, where it's just a short, bloody typical Abbey match, but yeah. There's a match with Dusty that was
How's
disappointing.
the Inoki match? I've never seen it.
There's multiple.
Yeah.
There's the famous one where it was the finals of the first IWGP championship. Yeah, it was a tournament that had gone on for 2 years. A lot of the matches were just fake, fictitious, made up. Like on Japanese TV, they would say this guy wrestled
in Rio de Janeiro, kind of.
Well, yeah, or in New York or in Europe. Like it was supposedly happening in like every continent in the world, but it wasn't. And the finals were Hogan and Inoki. And what had happened was Inoki was going to win, but there was a scandal that broke just before it where Inoki and I forget his name, the president of New Japan, I think there was an embezzlement. There was something going on, which is anyway. Yeah, something wasn't right. I don't know the exact details, but Inoki had to like go away for a bit to let the heat die down. So they changed the result to Hogan winning, but they did a shoot finish where supposedly it was booked in a way that the fans were supposed to think, oh, this wasn't supposed to happen. Inoki gets knocked out outside the ring. Hogan wins by countout, but Inoki sells it like he's like legit hurt and unconscious, and it was supposed to be like a worked shoot thing. That I don't. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth watching for the historical importance and all that, but I don't remember it being anything special. But so, yeah, there's lots of
overrated. The New Japan run, you think? A little overrated?
Well, the people who overrate it, I don't think I've ever seen it. They just know that he did like an arm bar against
or drop toe
hold and stuff.
Ran the ropes a few times. Yeah.
Seen clips, and they assume like, well, if you wrestle in Japan, you have to be more than just a gimmick. But no, watch the Backlund match. That's the two Backlund matches.
That's your showcase match.
That shows you Hogan can work the mat in that as much as he could.
Yeah, because Backlund's going to have his style, especially in 1980 as the middle of his championship run.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's a good example of Hogan working a mat-based match as much as anything in Japan, and much more exciting or more interesting. But I'm not an expert on the Japanese stuff, but it's just not anything people ever pimp, and people pimp Andre matches from Japan and Backlund matches and a lot of other guys, of course. I've had classics, American wrestlers, Canadian wrestlers had classic matches in Japan, but Hogan, I don't think there's one you could really point to other than the Hansen match in 1990 later on.
Yeah, but and that's just a 13-minute slugfest.
Yeah. Really. Yeah.
So nothing on the Inoki and Hogan tag league champions in MSG.
I don't know. Did they have? Maybe they were a tag team.
Yeah, I'm just reading wiki here as we kind of get out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, probably.
So.
We should maybe say a bit about Rocky III, like we danced around it, but I mean that was a big deal for Hogan.
It was massive.
Yeah, he was on the Tonight Show at that time promoting WrestleMania or Rocky III. It was around that time too that Hulkamania that was a thing for the first time, which he stole from Austin Idol. Austin Idol would have Idol Mania in different territories in the late 70s. Yeah, and if you look at Austin Idol in the late 70s, you can see that Hogan was influenced by him quite a lot too, with the hair, long blonde hair, good physique,
shoulders.
Yeah, and Austin Idol had the long boys too. It was a very similar look and a promo style. Hogan's original promo
pose too, right? Yeah.
Hogan's original promo style. And the promo style he has when he's Thunder Lips in Rocky III was basically him doing Austin Idol, I think, more than anybody.
Very cool.
Johnny Sorrow can do a good Thunder Lips Hogan. I'm not going to attempt one, but it's a different cadence. I'm Thunder Lips, baby. Is that what he says? I'm the ultimate male. Yeah, it's like it's not the Hogan that we think of when we think of great promos. So yeah, Rocky 3 was huge, and was huge in making him, of course, a bigger babyface in wrestling. And when he came back to the WWF, a lot of people, knew that he'd been in Rocky 3, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is a movie star coming in to be a wrestler," which was a huge deal and all that. So
it really propped up his projection.
Right? Oh yeah, because nobody in wrestling had that kind of profile before. Really, I mean, Gorgeous George was a huge star in the late 40s, early 50s. I think he made at least one movie, but it was like a schlocky B movie that was crap.
And Bruno was just a big star within wrestling.
Yeah, and Andre was pretty huge. Andre had a profile in a Sports Illustrated.
Well, his movie would come along later, though.
Issue, yeah. But and Andre was on the $6 Million Man, and was relatively well known. But yeah, Hogan took it to another level for sure, and he had the perfect look for the 80s. He was like He-Man come to life, comic book character come to life. Arnold Schwarzenegger, all those guys, that was the 80s, action heroes and all that. And Hogan fit in totally with that. So yeah, I mean, that's about it for his early days. Yeah, just check out some stuff like the stuff I mentioned. It's all there on YouTube.
So your one recommendation would be the Backlund match, probably.
The first Backlund match, and then the Andre match from March '81 at the Philly Spectrum. Those are the two for sure. And then Super Sunday against Bockwinkel, the AWA. That's a crazy match because the crowd is like nuclear hot. They thought for sure Hogan was going to win the belt finally, and they did a dusty finish. And the crowd was on the verge of a riot when Hogan had to come back and take the mic and calm the fans down.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's how intense it was. Because they did a dusty.
Cool,
they did like a dusty finish in front of they reversed it in front of the crowd. They didn't do it on TV like they would do in some territories the next day or next week or whatever. So that one's a cool match to see. Just for the heat is incredible. Yeah, I enjoy talking. If I'm going to talk about Hulk Hogan, I enjoy talking about the old days, for sure.
Well, that's Hogan, 77 through 83.
Yeah.
We're going to jump to the next guy for 84 through the golden era. So Kelly, this was awesome. Unfortunate, this is how we got together, but I was really happy and glad we were able to, buddy.
Yeah, me too. It was fun for sure.
So we'll see you soon, pal.
We will.
All right, Steve, we're here on to kind of chapter 2 of Hulk's run here. But when I say Hulk Hogan, what's the first thing that comes to mind with you, Steve?
First thing that comes to mind is just being young and wild and free. I mean, when I think about the beginning, for me, I only love two things: the Sabres and Hulk Hogan. That was all that mattered to me. Wrestling and hockey was my life from 1986 when I discovered wrestling. I had discovered hockey before, but from that moment until 1991, 1992, Hulk Hogan and wrestling was, something that made me something I was passionate about. One of the first things I was loyal to and cared about. And, I've told this story before, but I was at WrestleMania 6, and when Hulk Hogan lost, I cried on the way home. And there was, at 9 going on 10 years old, there was about 3 things in the world that could make me cry. Nona being sick, Hulk Hogan losing, and the Sabres being eliminated from the playoffs. That was about it. And that's what I think of, just that time of life being just so simple and so basic, and just the kind of joy and the fun that being a Hulkamaniac and a wrestling fan brought me back in those days.
Yeah, with Hulk, it's so polarizing, which I talked about a little bit earlier, right? But you can't deny what he's done to the history, right? And the boom, Vince really did pick the right guy in Hulk Hogan. Now, would have there been, say he picked Kerry Von Erich, say he picked Dusty Rhodes, would we have had a boom? Probably, most likely, but it's like peanut butter and jelly with this boom in Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania and everything. It's so mainstream. He's so polarizing. He's so magnetic. He's so just larger than life in this era. He's immortal, some would even say, right? But when when we're picking up here in 1984, when the Sheik beats Bob Backlund, a month earlier? Not even a month earlier, and then what is it? January 24th. I'm not even thinking January 23rd. I was not bad off the top of my head, Steve.
Yeah.
But January 23rd, 1984. Hogan literally just shows up. MSG drops a leg. He's been there before, but now it's back, and we're gonna ride this wave and see where it takes us. And what do you think of Hulk being the guy for Vince to pick?
Well, I just think wrestling changed that night forever. The trajectory of wrestling, the ceiling of wrestling, the popularity, everything changed that night. And it was because of Hulk. It was on Hulk's back. Of course, with the help of Vince McMahon, with the help of cable TV, national expansion. But, Hulk Hogan carried the weight of that for the most part and worked the towns and put the time in and wrestled every week and did the promos. And, Vince would find the guys, set him up, Hulk would knock him down. And they ran the formula and they changed wrestling forever. And everyone who works today makes the money they make today, the exposure they have today. They owe a great big debt of gratitude to Hulk Hogan and the work that he put in the 1980s from 1984 on, and then redefining himself in the 1990s, as you're going to talk about later. I mean, he's the biggest name in the history of wrestling. And even in bad times, when he returned to Raw, that night, the first Netflix Raw, what was the biggest story coming out of it? Hulk Hogan.
By Crook, Hulk Hogan,
yeah,
right?
Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is the name. He's Michael Jordan. He's Babe Ruth. He's Wayne Gretzky. He's the guy. He's the guy that made wrestling what it is. He's the guy that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I mean, just think, he was on the cover in 1985. If you would have told someone a year before, on January 22nd, 1984, that a wrestler could be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, you would have got laughed out of the room.
Yeah, it's such an iconic poster too.
Yep. And then Saturday morning cartoons, movies, albums. I mean, Howard Stern, the king of all media. Well, Hulk Hogan was the king of all wrestling.
Yeah, 84 is really it's really the rise of Hulk Hogan and Jimmy Snuka and Roddy Piper is what I think of when I close my eyes and think of 1984 in a way too. And that would come after the Snuka feud. These two things would kind of boil into a thing called WrestleMania.
Yep.
Right. And mainstream rock and wrestling, the A-Team, something you love as well.
Love the
Saturday Nights Live, something you're indifferent to, right? But MTV, something you love, music, right? The music, everything, just the cable industry booming, and then just all these things kind of coming together. This is the first wave of business that Hulk will kind of throw on his shoulders, and boom periods that you're lucky if you see one of them. And this guy caused two of them, by hook or by crook. Of course, other people had parts of it too.
Sure.
Right. And things had to fall into place. But the face of two boom periods in two different roles is on the shoulders of Hulk Hogan. But the first one being here, the whole rock and wrestling, cartoon, MTV, Cyndi Lauper, David Wolf, The Record, Lou Albano turning good guy, Muhammad Ali, all this stuff, MTV, just Hulk's the face of it. All those things being said, what do you think of kind of like 1985? That big boom right there.
Yeah, I think it's just an unbelievable year, and it is in a way a perfect storm when you mention all those things sort of coming together to create it. Hulk needed a guy like Piper to dance with, and Piper was so good at it. And he needed a guy like Vince McMahon who had the vision, who understood cable TV. He needed MTV, who's willing to take the risk of putting their young network together with wrestling and doing rock and wrestling. He needed a pop star like Cyndi Lauper, who went all in. She was in the ring at Madison Square Garden and got kicked across the ring by Roddy Piper. Imagine Taylor Swift right now getting kicked across the ring
by Roman
Reigns. I mean, she went all in.
That's such a good parallel. I had to stop you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, and all that stuff came together. And at the top of the mountain, is the hero, the superhero, the American patriot, in a time where being patriotic was something everyone was proud to be and inspired to be. You know, he fought the Iranians and the Iron Sheik and the Russians and Nikolai Volkov and whoever dared to challenge his prayers and his vitamins and his way of life, the American way of life. You know, he was the Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. That was Hulk Hogan in the 1980s. And in 1985, we seen it take one step. And then in 1986, we see it take another. And then, of course, the peak and the culmination, you know, March 29th, 1987 in the Pontiac Silverdome. And all of that happening, you just couldn't have again. Then 1988, 33 million people watched a match on NBC between Hulk Hogan.
33.1 million is the correct answer. But
insane.
But
that's more, by the way,
yep.
than every non-NFL sports championship combined with.
It's also a different
a different era. Of course it's a different era.
But yes.
Of course it is.
Absolutely.
But 33 million people for a wrestling match in 1988 to see Hulk and Andre. Crazy.
Yeah, and all that comes off the back of the success of the first WrestleMania. And that's carried by Hulk with the SNL right before, teaming up with Mr. T, and then having two foes that made the fans thirsty enough to really sink their teeth into this. And honestly, WrestleMania 1's not even a good WrestleMania. It's a great WrestleMania for what it was in the moment, but historically, it's just a glorified house show. Right.
Well, it doesn't have the benefit of having any WrestleMania
to the other one.
It.
Yeah, but it has a charm to it, which is also endearing and awesome as well, right? And then they would go on to do WrestleMania 2 with King Kong Bundy in 3 different cities and so on and so forth. And maybe it wasn't a big success. And LA is probably the biggest success, is maybe because Hulk's the only one there. And before that, he would have feuds, and he would go on feuds with Funk and Morocco and Orndorff, my personal favorite, from 85 to in 86, leading into the Pontiac Silverdome. Before we get to the Silverdome, anything on those guys? I know Bundy, you still fear Bundy.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I ever watched on TV, I was just flipping through the TV, and I saw Hulk Hogan with his ribs taped, working out, Mean Gene and the doctor watching him, and the doctor saying, "I've advised Hulk to not take his match at WrestleMania 2." And I was just wanted to know what it was. I was captivated by it. And my mom told me that, oh, that's wrestling. You know, Nono likes wrestling. And so I talked to my grandfather about it, and I started watching. That's when I started, right before WrestleMania 2. And I waited and waited and waited for the tape to be at Wegmans so I could rent WrestleMania 2 and see it and watch the match against Bundy. And Bundy scared the hell out of me because he had already crushed
heard it many times.
Hulk's ribs. Kamala scared the hell out of me.
Yeah, an underrated feud in that era as well.
Yeah, I would be petrified that Hulk would get hurt. You know, that one of these guys would just be too big and too strong, and somehow he always would, you know, pull through and beat the odds and Hulk up. You know, and I think when you're young like that, you look at his immortality and you transfer it to your real life. I remember when my Nono was passing away, and, you know, he would always say he was a good troll. He was a master Italian troll. And he would tell people to piss him off that wrestling was real and football was fake because for whatever reason, he didn't like football. So he would troll people like that. And I remember when he was getting towards the end, telling my mom that we need to show him some Hulk Hogan matches in the hospital because he needs to Hulk up like Hulk. And that's just, you know, at 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, you can't imagine. There's probably someone for every generation that just when you're that age and you look at that person through those eyes and through that lens, it just impacts you in a way that nobody else doing that thing ever can again. But because you just can't see it for the first time as, you know, a 5 or a 6 year old, you know, and maybe for kids now it's Cody Rhodes, you know, and his run, or maybe it's an athlete or whatever, you know, just when you get the benefit of being 5 and 6 and 7, like I was in the era of Hogan, nobody else can have that same impact because you just can't see it again through those eyes.
Yeah.
No,
that's why it's like this generation, our generation, you're a little older than me. Like our generation just sees Hulk a little different. Right. And
yeah,
it's like what I said to Landon today was, it's just like, well, your John Cena passed away. Right. And
yeah,
he was just like, and then the look on his face was just like, oh, okay, I get it. Right. Where he didn't really, he respect Hulk. He liked hearing stories of Hulkamania. He loves the Hulk and Rock match, but he doesn't have the attachment to Hulk like me or you or anyone else. Right. So when I said your John Cena died, it was just, he was just like, oh, he was quiet.
And also, Hulk came out in a time where we didn't know Terry.
Yeah.
We just knew Hulk.
Yeah.
It was a different time where you didn't know. I didn't know.
It was more of the character. There wasn't the social media.
Right.
There wasn't these shoot interviews and stuff like that. The curtain was not pulled behind, and it was a different goggles too with the 80s and the 90s. It was more what's on the tube. It was, there wasn't social media and everything like. It's just different lenses and different ways of looking at things as well, right?
Yeah.
So
I was watching or I saw this picture today, just a still frame of just a second before Andre rips Hogan's shirt in Piper's Pit, and it struck me for a second that, you had Hulk, you had Piper, you had Bobby, then you had Andre, and then kind of just off the frame just a little bit, you had Jesse. But when you think about the big match at WrestleMania 3, like Hulk is gone, Andre's gone, Joey Morella is gone, Gorilla Monsoon is gone, Bobby Heenan is gone, like Jesse, and I guess Vince behind the scenes is like the last man standing in that feud and what everything that went into putting that together. The ref, the play-by-play guy, the opponent, the manager. It's just Jesse left, and like I said, to some degree Vince, but it was more in an off-the-screen role.
Yeah,
but kind of crazy to think about. But another thing too about WrestleMania 3. So my uncle had told me, and he's trolling, I'm sure. He told me, he said, Andre, I read in the newspaper that Andre is going to win. And I remember saying, like, well, how would the newspaper know that Andre is going to win a match that's, Sunday? And he, got real cocky, and he's like, well, they already decided who's going to win. It's fake or whatever. And the thing about it is he walked himself right into a trap, because then when Hulk won, he became a big lie. He was a big liar, and it affirmed everything I believed about the myth of wrestling and Hulk Hogan as a young kid. It's like, they wrote that in the newspaper. Well, aren't they stupid? Like they were wrong. And, I remember just what a fun day that was too, having friends over. And, there's all these people now in retrospect, when there's a big game in your city, like maybe for a Red Sox fan, it was Game 4 in 2004, right? There's only 35,000 people in Fenway, but now in Boston, there's like 200,000 people who were at that game somehow. Every sports city has a game like this. Like maybe in Buffalo, it's the Bills comeback game against the Chiefs. There was 80,000 people there, but 50,000 of them left when it was 35-3. But 200,000 in Buffalo say they were there, and none of those people say they left. Well, I feel like in a lot of ways, the myth of those things now with Hogan is there's all these people who say, I never liked Hogan when I was little. I like the bad guys. I was never a Hulk guy. I knew that was stupid. And I just call bullshit on that, because you know what? I was in the class. I was in the lunchrooms, the classrooms, in the playground. I never met one person, not one, in 1986, 87, 88, or 89 that did not love Hulk Hogan. I never met one person to say to me, I'm rooting for the heels. So I call a lot of BS on some of these revisionist people out there. But I mean, it was the most unifying thing in the school in the 80s. Right. We would meet up at lunch and we would talk about Hulk, and everybody loved him. Some people maybe liked a different sports team. Maybe you had a different favorite player. But like I said, I didn't know anyone who didn't love Hulk. And if they didn't, they just didn't like wrestling. You know, of course, there's people who are like, I don't know wrestling, but they knew Hulk.
Wrestling. Yeah.
But they knew Hulk, you know, and it was a fun time. And he was a big part of the fun.
Well, some would say 87 for Pontiac Silverdome was like the hump, the peak of popularity. And I don't want to say that the rest of his run here is like the downfall, maybe towards the end business-wise, but coming out of WrestleMania 3 would lead to WrestleMania 4. You talked about the 33.1 million people watching on a Friday night, correct? Friday night? It was a Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday night.
On a Friday night on NBC, the main event.
NBC proper, prime time.
8 o'clock, right?
Yep.
So
my whole family watched.
33, like unbelievable number, all-time number. It wasn't even number one on the night, which is funny, by the way. But for wrestling, it's unbelievable. Never topped, never duplicated, untouchable forever. Right? That's the record.
Yep.
So
because the situation can never be the same. And then don't forget, in '89, you have one of the best stories they ever told. Absolutely. With Macho Man, and WrestleMania 5 was the biggest piece of business that they did for a long time. For a long time. The business of WrestleMania 5 was number one for years and years and years. So sure, in a way, there is somewhat of a peak. And look, you can only have Hulk versus Andre that way for the first time once. Yeah. So, you know, Happy Gilmore 2 comes out. And
we'll see how it is.
But you can only have Hulk. You can only have Happy Gilmore 1 once, right? It's always going to be. So there was a little bit of a peak, but again, like you said, 88 has 33 million. 89 has WrestleMania 5. 90 has all the letters that we all wrote when Earthquake's fat ass broke his ribs, and we were all writing those letters. Everybody I knew wrote a letter. To whatever you had to do. I don't forget the specifics. I know I did it once for the Bulldogs when the Bulldog got stolen, and I did it once for Hulk when he got his never was I so excited to write a letter so that a company could put my address on a mailing list. But
what a great gimmick in 1988.
Yeah, I definitely did it for that. And 91, he had some moments, it started to maybe tail off. 93 was 93. But I'll say this about the end of this era, right? For my purposes in this video, it's 93. And 93 has the moment in WrestleMania 9. And you could say what you want about that moment. Should have done it, shouldn't have done it, whatever. But when you watch that match and you watch Hulk get the 1, 2, 3, look at the reaction from the crowd. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in the world had the power to get that reaction in that moment. Doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. I love Brett. I know how Brett feels about it. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying, watch the reaction. And why was Hulk there at all? Because they couldn't sell any tickets without him. It's in the documentary. Watch the guy from the casino talks all about it.
Yep. Saying all along, we're going to have Hulk, right? We're going to have Hulk, right? And Vince is like, yes, we're going to have Hulk. He'll be our champion. And they were like, what? And then they let it. Yeah, it was, if you believe Basil and
sure.
his word.
I mean, it's their documentary, so they can say whatever they want to some degree.
So
I want to say this too before we go, because I know we're getting close to the time we want to do it. There's one other part to this story for me. And in 2016, I had a kid. And one of the things I really wanted to do, and I wish she was here, but she's at cheerleading. One of the things I wanted to do as a dad is I didn't want to have a kid who doesn't know anything about anything that didn't happen 5 minutes ago. Like, I wanted to teach her about the things that I loved when I was a kid. I wanted her to know about the movies I liked, the TV shows I liked, the bands I liked. I wanted her to know about that stuff. I want her to be in school, and when the teacher says, I don't know if anyone here knows who whatever is, and she's the kid who raises her hand. And one of the first things I showed her was Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania.
What match? Do you recall?
I think the first match I ever showed her of Hulk's was Hulk and Andre at WrestleMania 3, because I wanted to show her how big it was. I wanted to show her the crowd. And we watched we will still watch a match just sort of randomly together. I'll say, hey, do you remember this? Or she says, oh, I haven't watched that one since 5. I remember I have this amazing video of her after we watched Hogan and Rock for the first time, and she's kind of got a little bit of a cold, and she's talking about watching the match and how she was mad that Rock got the 1-2 free. But it's a little part of my childhood that I got to share with her. And when I saw the news today, I called her into my room and I showed her the graphic, and she said, Hulk is dead. And the first thing she said is, do you think Ro is okay? Because she loves that little boy Ro from Instagram.
Oh my God. What's he gonna do, brother? Yeah.
Yeah, that has met him in the store and did the because that kid's her age. So like to her, they're the two like ultimate 9-year-old Hulk fans. So she was concerned about Ro today. But there's gonna be a new generation. We've seen it with Ozzy this week. Sons, grandsons of people who loved his music have learned to love Hulk, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of Hulkamaniacs who are like me and have kids who appreciate Hulk Hogan as well. And I did a podcast with my friend Hollywood Dave on Hulk for a long time, and Paul was a big part of that. And when she wouldn't be on for a while, I could guarantee at least 3 emails the next day from people wondering where the hell Paul is. So she's a great Hulkamaniac too. And again, like I didn't know Terry, but I knew Hulk, and Hulk was the best.
Yep. If it's from beating the Sheik to WrestleMania 1 to the Rock and Wrestling Connection to the Pontiac Silverdome to the Mega Powers exploding to the Ultimate Challenge, all the way to the farewell at WrestleMania 8, and then the one more title win at WrestleMania 9. Whatever journey you went on with Hulk, this is the golden era, and he was the main character. And I couldn't see anyone else not being the main character in retrospect. And, it's a sad day, bad day, but unfortunately for Hulk. But, the memories live on, and that's kind of why we're here, Steve, right?
Yeah, I want to show a second of this. Look at it.
It was awesome. Who got the 1, 2, 3?
This is her first match?
Rock? Yeah. But who did you want to win? Hulk Hogan. What moves did The Rock do?
Now, Steve, I'm asking this to everyone. What's your favorite Hulk Hogan match?
Well, I mean, it's Hulk versus Andre.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a WrestleMania 3 guy. Like, I think about WrestleMania 3 like 6 days a week.
Yeah, probably. Absolutely.
I watch WrestleMania 3, 5 times a year. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say that's not my favorite match. I have other ones I like a lot. I actually love the Hogan Rock match that I just played the video.
That's my personal favorite. I'm a little younger, right?
It's so good. It's so great that, just that he surprised people the way he did. That he took over that match the way he did, and the crowd reactions. Legend says Stephanie McMahon told everybody. She had been around that weekend, and she was telling everybody
in Toronto too.
Yeah, in Toronto. Like, I don't know, Hulk might steal his show tomorrow, and he did. So I love that. There's some MSG ones I love.
There's a Garden one that's underrated against Stud, and this is at like the end of the Stud run when everyone's sick of it. May or June '85 versus Stud, the second pay-per-view or the second televised Boston Garden. That's probably my favorite early Hogan match. Right, so there's some sleepers out there too. Hogan is a sleeping giant of a worker. The one that I did with Scott Keith versus Stan Hansen from the Worlds Collide show, or whatever it is. So,
yeah, he's a better worker than people give him credit for. He just found a formula that worked better than working good. I mean,
he maximized his minutes within that formula. Though,
he played the hits. You know what I mean? But he was capable of more, and he's shown it. There's some really great, like some of the stuff he did with Savage in '85 at MSG. I really like to look back on, just because it's just a different time for both of them. Maybe starts in '85 and ends in '86.
January.
The 3 matches. I think it's right at the end of the year there. Yeah. I love the stuff with Kamala just because I was so afraid of Kamala back in the day.
It's so different too, right? It's colorful. Yeah. It's Kamala at his peak, absolutely.
I like his Saturday night's main event match against Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm. The Toronto one's really good too. A week before it, That's really, really good with Terry Funk, right? But yeah, he's just to a point where he's underrated in ring, right? In my eyes.
I do have a least favorite match. I have a least
There's
favorite
no one
match.
else. Yeah. Steve, there's no one else that I could envision doing this era with, and I'm glad we were able to on a sad day.
Yeah, Forza Hulk, one of the great Italian Americans in history of the United States. God bless and Godspeed, Hulkster.
All right, let's see who we got for WCW and NWO. Steve, thank you, buddy. All right, guys, we're here for part 3 of this little Hulkamania rundown here. And I'm with Marty Sleeze. Marty, when I say Hulk Hogan or Hollywood Hulk Hogan in this aspect, what kind of comes to mind?
So I'm on a little bit of the younger side for probably the people that you interview and that kind of run in the Place to Be Nation. So I know exactly when I started watching wrestling. It was July 28th, 1997. I grew up in a duplex. My uncle lived on the other side. I went next door, and he had wrestling on. I had never seen it before, and I was hooked. And then he told me that there was 2 shows, and there was one on 33 TNT, one on 35 USA. And I ran next door. I was like, we got to change the channels to 33 and 35. And I think my parents just thought I was going to go through a phase, but it was a lifelong obsession. Little did they know. But I actually don't have any memories from that week. I just know it was that week because I made a point to watch the next week. And the next week was Lex Luger racking the Hulkster.
Unbelievable.
For the WCW title. So my first clear memory is from Hulk Hogan. So, obviously a controversial person who maybe personally was not a good person. We actually, and wrestling fans knew that before the public knew that. We knew he wasn't great behind the scenes, but I don't think a lot of us would be here today if it wasn't for the Hulkster. So, he was definitely very important in my life. And, I hope he rests in peace and, prayers for him and his family.
Yeah. So I think we're the same age. I'm 39, right? So
yeah,
I also grew up in a duplex, which is kind of funny. And it made me laugh when you said 33 and 35 because now it's YouTube TV or whatever platform you have your channels, right? So, or it's DVR or Netflix or streaming and whatever. Right. So where we're going to pick up is where we left off in the spring, I want to say, or early summer of 1994. Hulk's gone through the steroid trial. He's taken his break from wrestling. He's been off for pretty much 2 years full time now, beside a blimp of 93. And Eric Bischoff, we know the story, goes out and grabs him, signs him. They have the big parade in Orlando. They bring in Mr. T. They bring in Shaq, Sherry. We finally get the Ric Flair dream match. What are your thoughts? What are you going to think of this time period of 1994? Hulk Hogan's back in wrestling, but the red and yellow is in WCW.
That's right. So this is not nostalgia for me, right? So like I said, my first time watching him was in 97. So this is me going back. And I understand where the WCW diehards come from. This is a Southern promotion. It was something distinctly different. Bringing in Hogan really changed WCW. Now, so I totally get, people who, grew up in the South from the 80s into the early 90s and how they, I think they were prepped to not like this. But as somebody with fresh eyes that doesn't really have those ties, I actually am a kind of a defender of the 94 to 96 red and yellow Hulkster. It's cartoony, it's campy, but it's done in a pretty fun way, and I actually enjoy the booking. Originally, I kind of sided with the internet. Maybe they went too fast into the Flair program. Like, Flair's this baby face with the world title, great match with Steamboat and Spring Stampede. But I think it was the right move. You just hit strike while the iron's hot. Yeah, the Flair heel turn is rushed, but you know what? It's what the people wanted to see. Popped a big buy rate. People were excited for it. The match is very good. Yes, Flair definitely is wrestling different. It's more cartoony. It's more cheating. It's not 80s Flair, but it's still like interesting and entertaining. The big hidden gem is actually the Clash of the Champions match. I think nobody talks about that. It gets kind of marred by the Tanya Harding angle, but that's the match I highly recommend. What was that?
Flash 5, is it?
I don't know which one it is, but it's the August 94 one.
Okay.
So I highly recommend that one. So yeah, the Flair stuff is obviously very great. We then transition to Sullivan's first kind of iteration of the Dungeon of Doom. It's not
The
actually
Legend of
Dungeon
Doom
of Doom.
is
It's
starting.
it's like the Faces of Fear with like Beefcake and Tenta as the Avalanche. That stuff's not that great, but by 95 they're switched back. They're going into Vader, and that Super Brawl Vader match is gotta be. It's definitely at least top 10, if not top 5 Hogan match of all time. It's really it's really good. It's really strong, and I actually like the uncensored match too. The finish is dumb because he pins Flair instead of Vader, and Flair's not in the match. But like that's classic
strap match or whatever it was. Yeah.
Strap match, but the actual match itself is pretty good. I actually like Flair and drag. I think some people think it's dumb and it's like, oh, how they humiliated
It's
Flair.
1995.
It's
exactly.
1995. Yeah. I think it's great. He's so unhinged. He's so deranged. Hogan's taken the thing that matters most to him. It's not the title that matters most to him. It's his ability to wrestle. And he has a mental fucking break. It's a reality break. And his promos when he's in the nail polish and with the eyeshadow on is great. And so that's what, anyways, going back to the Hogan part, what Hogan allowed WCW to do, and yes, it's a departure from what makes WCW. So I can understand why some people get annoyed by it. Is it allowed them to just do this complete shift to cartoon? It's like a rogues gallery. It's Batman versus all the different villains, and you have Vader, and you have Flair, and then you have Sullivan. And I thought it's actually a pretty interesting time. The TV week to week isn't great. There's not a lot going on, but the pay-per-views are all super interesting, and they really do carry really well one into another. And the storyline progression is there. Slamboree match is really cool with Hogan, with the Mega Powers reuniting, taking on Flair and Vader. And Flair and Vader, I mean, you can't really ask for two better top heels in 95 for Hogan either. There's actually a really fun match right before Slamboree. I believe Hogan and Savage for some reason dress up as luchadors. People should check it out. It's on WCW Saturday night. I can find it. I mean, I can try to.
It's got to be out there.
But it's wicked funny, and that's really good. But then going into the Nitro era, I'm a big defender of
all of 95. Here we are. We're Nitro kind of kicks off.
And actually, that's what I'm doing right now. If you're on, this is a cheap plug, I guess, but if you're on Pro Wrestling Only and you follow Superstar Sleeze, it's what I'm reviewing right now. And I've watched this back before. Bischoff does a great job, and Sullivan does a great job. It's these 6 guys. You got Hogan, Flair, Savage, Sting, the Giant, and Luger. And what they do that's so interesting is you don't know who's on either side. I mean, Hogan says it all the time: who's friend, who's foe. Friend or foe, friend or foe. He's always talking about that. But he's the centerpiece. He's the nexus, right? He's the one that is good. And then is it Savage that's going to turn on him? Is it Sting? Luger's just showed up. Luger does turn on him. We know the Giant's bad because he's with Sullivan. And that's the other reason why I defend the Dungeon of Doom. I feel like if it was just Giant, Sullivan, Jimmy Hart, and Lex Luger, you have a badass heel stable.
Yeah,
it's the fucking Yeti and the friggin'
even had the Faces of Fear in there, right?
Zodiac.
We're still rocking.
Yeah, and the original Jimmy Hart turn was actually really well done, and it's this era of paranoia, and they were really people kind of forget they were teasing Sting turning heel really hard. It's a very interesting time in wrestling. Nowadays, I feel like it's just so cut and dry, and there's no mystery, there's no intrigue anymore. You're watching it back, it's like every hour, each show, you didn't know what was going to happen. But then, so Hogan walks the dark side, right? That's the big thing. He does get booed. So, that's the other thing, right? In WCW, it's kind of depending on what side of the fence you're on when it comes to the Hulkster. You get some people who over-exaggerate how booed he gets in WCW. And then there's people who over-exaggerate how over he still is in WCW. The answer is it's mixed. It really depended on what city they were in and what month you were in. Because watching back these Nitros, sometimes he's the most over dude. And then I just watched Nitro from like Chicago, and he was getting booed out of the freaking building. So like it's a hard situation that they were trying to navigate, but they clearly knew they had to shake things up. So that's why they did like the month of the dark side, where he cut some really weird promos and was trying to act like he was Don Corleone. He kept talking about taking care of the family business, and I was just like, I don't know what was going on.
It was like he was going through some shit at this time.
He was going through like a little midlife crisis. And he kept talking about how like there is evil within like Hulk Hogan. You're right, Kevin Sullivan. And I'm like, wait, it was like kind of like some mixed messaging, but you know, it's tough. It's like, well, like if we think about it, right? Hogan was born in 1953, so he's like 42. Like you're getting old. Like maybe he's realizing he's not that cool anymore. He needs to bring that edge. And
you know what it is? It's like LeBron James before he returned change teams in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're an NBA fan, but it's like how LeBron would act. He'd go meta and quote movies that he's never seen and go into like the zero dark 30 before he would change teams and get out of town. So Hulk kind of did that before he kind of changes to the NWO.
Exactly. Hulk was smart enough to know he needed to change something to keep like, you know, to stay relevant and to be cool. You know, if one thing we can all agree on as a positive about Hogan is he's somebody who understood how to market himself and how to promote himself. So he was definitely very aware that like, dude, this red and yellow stuff, it's getting old, it's getting long in the tooth. I've been doing it for 11 years. How can we shake shit up? So he goes through the dark side thing, you know, and then, how did I forget? In the dungeon, of course. I mean, the most classic part of the dungeon, which I did watch back recently, which is incredible, of course, is the, it's not hot. And there's no Hulkamaniacs down here. Well, I hope, Hulkster, there's some Hulkamaniacs wherever you are now. I hope you're not anywhere without any Hulkamaniacs. So, I mean, that stuff. I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I get that sometimes I feel like wrestling fans just don't like fun. You know, is it campy? Yes, but it's fun. It's entertaining. I don't know. I like that.
Campy and fun is 95, 96, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. Before we do the SWO.
So Hulk's in the WCW for about 2 years almost at the time where he kind of turns to the dark side. He has a 469-day title run before losing it to the Giant. Yep. And then there's like some bullshit that goes on that you kind of talked about. He's acting weird. And is it now? Do you think that he was with the Arden fans? We're Arden fans, obviously. Did you think that the Arden fans, even though you weren't one yet, but you're smart enough now to look back and reflect, right before joining in the rumors of the third man, do you think the Arden fans legit thought it could be Hogan? Or did you think all along that they figured it would be Sting or whoever?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. The interesting thing was going back and watching these Nitros, is they really made it seem like it could be anybody but Hogan. So like the way, like I couldn't believe they teased like Jimmy Hart turning heel like a month before he did. I was like, wow, I would have thought they really wouldn't have foreshadowed that at all. Like I thought that was supposed to be a surprise. And so the fact that literally the universe revolved around Hogan, I think for the casual fans, I think there's no way they would have thought it. Smart fans, maybe it crossed their minds, but to be honest with you, the way it was kind of set up, the one thing that's interesting that you bring it up is the Heenan thing that he gets a lot of flack for saying whose side is he on, which is actually bullshit. Because if you watch the week-to-week Nitros, we have evidence of Heenan saying that pretty much every single time a babyface came out, because people forget that was kind of the deal with WCW for 6 months. Like, it was the Jimmy Hart turn. It was the Ms. Elizabeth's turn. People were primed to think literally anyone could turn at any time.
Which was a draw to the show.
It was, yeah. It was a total draw. I think I don't want to get too much into modern day wrestling, but it's almost like we swung too far in the other direction. We don't have enough turns. We don't have enough title switches. Everything has to be so long and drawn out. It's almost like, I'm a big music guy. Like the 80s, which is my favorite type of music, is so heavy in the guitar. So when grunge came in, you know, they killed the guitar solo. It's not about the guitar no more. And they just swung so far in the other direction. It's like, well, guitar is pretty killer. Like, why do we have to fucking kill the guitar, grunge people? And I feel like kind of the same way. I get it. The Attitude Era went too far, too many title switches, too many turns. But it's like, there's a happy balance. I sometimes think, you know, we could, you know, make wrestling a little bit more intriguing with a little bit more mystery and suspense if we did that. But anyways, so yeah, he can get a lot of flack for that. But yeah, I think it was surprising no matter who you were. I really think the way it was presented, I don't think anybody would have thought Hogan was turning.
So here we are, Hall and Nash, two cool ass motherfuckers. My favorite thing about Warzone is when Chad just like runs down what they said on Nitro and he can't help to giggle to himself. And just the joy that he's portraying to us as he's reading what Hall and Nash are saying on these Nitros is like my favorite part of the Warzone, right? But Warzone is not the Warzone if Hogan being the third man isn't as impactful as it is to kind of go full circle here and jump into the NWO. Did the NWO get too big with the A team, the B team, and even the C team with adding Macho, Hogan, Rodman, the Wolfpack, the Giant, everyone? Yes. But to the crux of the NWO, it's the three guys. It's Hall showing up. He's bringing in Nash. It's powerbombing Bischoff. And then Hogan is the third guy. That is the crux of the NWO. The shirt that you're wearing right now is a top 2 all-time wrestling t-shirt, probably top 3, whoever you ask. Austin, NWO, and the red and yellow. Those are probably the top 3 wrestling t-shirts of all time, and Hulk is responsible for 2 of them. So what are you going to say with Hulk and the NWO? The floor is yours. See you in 15 minutes. Continue.
Hell yeah. I will say, anytime I wear this friggin' shirt, I get 2 sweets at least, like one or two. Like everyone loves the 2 sweet. I'm NWO for life, brother. Yeah, I mean, it's the reason why I'm a professional wrestling fan. There's no doubt in my mind. You know, I talked about Luger Rackett, the Hulkster is my first memory, but it's the week in, week out NWO promos. Like you said, they were literally the coolest dudes. I just texted my family. I said Hogan died. You know, it's obviously very sad. And my sister's fiance, you know, texted just, you know, a GIF of the NWO. He's not like a super fan or anything. I just threw it out there and I just looked at it and it's like, these guys are just so fucking cool. You know, it's Hogan, it's Big Sexy, it's the bad guy, it's Macho. It's like, man, you can't think.
Hogan was so uncool for 2 years.
He was so uncool. I mean, he was the dad, and I'm like trying to defend that, but like he was. I can completely admit he was uncool.
You get the Jimi Hendrix, you get the guitar, you get the white and the black brother, you get the grandma spitting at him. He's so fucking cool. Continue.
He's so cool. Yeah, Bischoff. Like what I did on my drive home is I just like played nothing but NWO Hogan promos. Like, you got to give credit to Bischoff too, constantly coming out there, you know, being that sleazy prick, really setting up the Hulkster. And I mean, the whole always talking about spending all of Turner's money, talking about he was, you know, the god who made wrestling, that he was bigger than all the promotions, he was bigger than wrestling himself. You know, everybody kisses the ground that Hogan walks on. I mean, it was just week in and week out. It was just so much fun to watch. A couple personal notes. First wrestling show I ever went to, Boston Brawl in January '98. An internet show or radio show. I don't know how the hell what it was called, but unfortunately, no tape of it exists. But for absolutely stacked. Macho, Luger, Goldberg, Giant, DDP. The Outsiders, you name it. I saw a Bret Hart, Ric Flair match. I saw Benoit, Eddie. I mean, I am so blessed to have gone to that show. Main event, Hulkster versus Sting in a steel cage, you know? And it was just like, it was the perfect capper to it. It was Hollywood Hogan. And I got to see him. I was so excited. And then I went to a Nitro later that year. Unfortunately, that was during the Hogan Warrior stuff. We don't need to talk about that. That was
for us. No wow here. No wow. No wow needed.
But I will say, WCW 97 is maybe the best booked year. Unfortunately, the Hogan Sting match wasn't booked well. But from top to bottom, you're talking from January 1st through Starrcade, maybe the best booked year of all time of any company. We got a friend, Eric Ritz of Segunda Caída, who's actually writing a book completely devoted to WCW 97. I'm very excited for that. It's just, they booked the NWO so friggin' perfectly that year, from pay-per-view to pay-per-view, alternating the Macho DDP, the Outsiders against Flair and Piper, Hogan, Luger. It was just such a good cycle. And like you said, Hogan became so cool, and those what I loved about the NWO was the following announcement has been paid for by the NWO, right? New world order. Oh my, Hogan in those he was so good. And that's what I remember mostly. It really is. I mean, he had good matches as Hollywood. I guess we could talk about that a little bit. There's a Nitro match against DDP that people don't talk about enough. I thought that was really good. The Piper match in Starrcade 96 was really good. That's a good one. A lot of people like the Havoc 96 Savage match. Here's a weird take for you. I actually like the uncensored 98 Savage match in the steel cage. That's the other thing. Hogan, and I figured that the people before me have brought this up, but this idea that Hogan is slow or plotting, I'm like, it's the most bizarre thing to me. The man was cutting a good pace well into 98. Like, those Sting matches, he's the better wrestler. Sting was totally out of shape and looked terrible in those.
Not tan at all.
Yeah, not tan enough, not moving well. But Hogan cuts a good pace even during his NWO era. That's the other thing, is the amount of ass he was willing to show. Because, as the Hulkster, you got to be strong. But the key to a good heel is being selfless, letting the babyface shine. And he really understood that. Like, it was okay for him to look like a buffoon and to look like a coward. So he really made that switch to being a heel. Well, a lot of the Hogan offense as a babyface is a little heel-oriented. I know that's sometimes a criticism, like the back rakes and stuff like that. So he was just able to keep that going, right? Like, he could just throw that shit in there, but now he's a heel, so he's getting booed for it. He's got the weightlifting belt. He can whip people. Yeah, I think he doesn't get enough credit. He never got enough credit as a wrestler, but I think when people do talk about him being great, they still are trying to refer to the 80s. I actually think you can make a great case for 90s Hogan being still a very top tier wrestler.
Yeah, there's some decent stuff in here. A few moments, few guys that we want to touch on here. If it's the Piper stuff that I adore, and you said that you like too. We talked about that with Steve earlier, and then they bring it back here for good business at the end of 96. Yep. And then in 97, we close it with Sting. We get the Luger stuff, the Giant stuff before that. And then we have like this weird mix of Karl Malone and Jay Leno.
Yeah, I actually bought that show. I got my parents to buy a Road Wild 98. What was I thinking?
It's funny, back in the day, you would beg your parents to get shit, and then you look back, you're like, I can't believe I got that one, right?
I know. What was I thinking? That was a dumb one to get.
So the crossover in the relationship with Rodman, too, just to play into the cool factor as well, right? Yeah. To have these two mainstream matches with Karl Malone, who's an NBA top 10 player at the time, Jay Leno, channel or 11 p.m. talk show hosts aren't what they are. Rest in peace, Stephen Colbert now, but back in the 90s, it was the thing to do. And then you Jay Leno and having this feud, it just shows how transcendent Hogan was still in the 90s, in the late 90s here as a guy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he revolutionized wrestling twice, right? Once in the 80s and then in the 90s. I mean, that was the other thing I wanted to mention, kind of what you led into, right? It's not just the execution of the turn was super great, but as we've seen with the John Cena turn, great execution on the angle. The follow through matters. The Cena follow through has been the shits. Could have been the greatest angle of the 2020s.
Good highs, but mediocre lows with a middling of 4.
But the Hogan thing, every week it was so well done. They really had this planned out, and everyone committed to the bit. And
he was so invested that made it work.
It did, 100%. He really ratcheted up being the heel, and he was. And to be honest with you, like you said, the Outsiders were cool. Were the cool heels, but Hogan was the actual heel that you hated. because he was the coward. He was the one that was over the top, telling you that you should worship at his feet. You should grovel. You should feel just lucky to be in his presence. That was the guy you actually wanted to see get his ass kicked. He made the stable work. He was the linchpin of everything. And that's the thing. He understood. He could have fucked it up by trying to be a baby face or trying to be too strong, but he was willing to be selfless and to be a coward. So I mean, going back a little bit to also what you said, because as I'm trying to progress through 97, like pinnacle, amazing year. 98, they tried the Civil War thing, and looking back on it, 98 is like my peak, it's like my peak year as like a fan. That's like as a child, I should say, like
same.
remembering.
I was ramped up. Same,
yeah, and like at the time, you didn't really know like quality, so to speak, because you're just a kid. But like even I could kind of tell like WWF was getting better. Like I was WCW, for life. Like I never thought I'd switch to the WWF, honestly. But by the end of 98, I was watching like Stone Cold and Vince and all that shit. So you could tell like they were losing their grip. The Ultimate Warrior stuff wasn't that great. The black and white versus the Wolf Pack was weird. I mean,
so
just
cool
as
on paper though. Yeah,
cool on paper. Well, what they should have done. All right, we're just gonna do a quick second of fantasy book, and then
we'll go for it.
Is they try to get too fancy. They overthought it. They put Nash with Savage, and they put Hogan with Hall. Just do the fucking Mega Powers versus the Outsiders. Like, why did we do the mixed match? Right? Like, people didn't want to see that. They wanted and Hogan and Savage could have been great heels. People wanted to cheer Nash and Hall. We've already talked about that. Nash and Hall is the baby faces against Hogan and Savage. It's
was gravitating to the Wolfpack anyways.
Yeah, and if Hall was in the Wolfpack, it would have made more sense. So anyway, that's quick aside. But one thing I really want to say before we kind of shut it down on the WCW is there was still hope in early 99. I know a lot of people will say, oh, the finger poke of doom, oh, that will put butts in the seats January 4th, 99. But if you look at the ratings and you look at the business, Hogan Flair was drawing. Yeah, Hogan Flair drew in February and March in 99. They still had something going. And if you watch the Nitros from like March, April 99, they're still really good. The issue was, I mean, Hulkster went away. The Savage Nash program kind of sucked. And then the Hulkster, it's a very interesting time in the summer of 99. It's one that I've remember because I was a kid, but I also have kind of watched back a little bit. He goes back to the red and yellow, and it almost resets to 95, where like you don't know who's friend or foe, as he loves to say, and like everything's kind of going off the rails. I don't really feel like talking about the Vince Russo shit. It's kind of lame and terrible, and Vince kind of fucks.
It is, the Jarrett stuff's washed.
Yeah.
You would think Hulk's washed, but he's really not, because in 2002, we have a resurgence of the NWO. Yep. The invasion is over, and you get in these vignettes, and Vince is going to inject poison into his own company and bring in the NWO. And similar to 95, it's hokey. Like, you get the car, you get this 18-wheeler crash, you get like Austin and Hall and the milk freaking thing with the alcohol, and it's like 80. That's being generous. It's like 60% cool of what it was. Like, it was still cool. It was still cool because it was on WWF TV. We went through the invasion, which in retrospect was kind of fun and cool, but star power wise, it's not what we have heading into WrestleMania 18. And at WrestleMania 18, incredible. 5-star match. It's incredible. Like, I used to be a snob and be like, it's 4 1/4. I mean, it's 4 1/2. It's awesome. But Hulk's offense is kind of whack, and the punches are bad. I don't give a fuck. I've grown up. It's incredible. It's a 5-star match. It's awesome. I've grown up. I've become a better wrestling critic, better wrestling fan. 5 fucking stars. WrestleMania 18. This lightning bolt that Hulk drives into Toronto. Just put yourself in that moment real quick. And what do you think of the NWO of WF? The NWO and the WWF as well. What do you think?
First intro. All right. So a little bit about my fandom. big WCW guy. Russo kills my interest in WCW. I hear WWF bought WCW. Yeah. I basically stop watching wrestling, but then I hear about the invasion. I come back, see WCW gets wrecked. There's no even real WCW stars. It's all kind of Mick Carter's plus Booker T, DDP, I guess. And then then the NWO comes back. It's like, all right, I'll watch again. But like you said, it's not done right, because what it is they just another guide them. I don't know how to say it another way. It's just like the NWO. It wasn't the all-encompassing main event act. It was just kind of like, here's another heel stable. And the NWO and like the Four Horsemen, those are not stables that can just be another stable. But the WrestleMania match, like you said, is freaking incredible. It's just it's really good. It's lightning in a bottle. And what it really showed was they didn't want him as a heel. They want him as a babyface, brother. And that's credit to Vince and credit to Hogan for realizing that. And then he just went on a tear. Other hot take I have about that is the year that the WWF, for the first time ever, and we still deal with it today, though not as bad today, but for a long time, became a nostalgia promotion. So I think that's a really interesting point. Like, ever since then, it's relied heavily on nostalgia acts. But what a time for nostalgia. I remember talking about it in the cafeteria with my friends. Like, it's crazy. Like, Hogan was near 50, and we were acting like, like we didn't realize he was 50 when you're 12. You're just like, he's just like a cool fucking adult with his feathered boas. Oh, fun fact, bought a feathered boa because I love the Hulkster so much.
What color?
And I wore it like for one Halloween. And I recommend never getting a feather boa. I never cleaned out all the feathers from my college apartment. Like, I just left it like I kept finding feathers. So anyways, the Hulkster, I don't know how he kept his feather boa. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, 2002, 2003, Mr. America. That was okay.
The Vince match is incredible too. I love the Vince match.
Oh, the Vince match. Yes, that's
I
actually, I forgot about that. Yes, the Vince match is very good. And like you said, Hogan still had it. Like, he just had this presence. Like, I mean, if you want, we could talk about the SummerSlam 2005 match against Shawn Michaels. Like, people talk about that, like, oh, Shawn didn't really want to wrestle or something. Actually, not just the match. Though I remember the month prior, all those promos Shawn cut were fucking incredible. Me and my brother, that was like one of the few times in like the post 2002, like, you felt like you had to watch wrestling every week. It was kind of like CM Punk with the pipe bomb. Like, oh, it's not like I can DVR and fast forward. It's like, I want to know what Shawn's going to say about Hogan this week. And the match is great. Like, people need to, stop being so whiny.
Well, Shawn oversells, but I'm a Shawn
guy.
Fun. I love
it's
Shawn.
fun. It's fun.
It was a unique match, but it's just it's too giffy in retrospect.
Oh no, I dig it. I love it. But I like the campy stuff, So I dig it. I dig it.
So we were both in the building for his final match. I wonder if he knew at the time that it was going to be his final match in August 2006 against Randy Orton. I really like the Saturday Night's Main Event angle with like Brooke leading into it. Brooke's like trying to be like a pop star, and then like sleazy Legend Killer Orton's like hitting on her, and then he RKO's him on the Lincoln or whatever. It's
right. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting, right? Because we got so accustomed starting with Flair that everyone gets a retirement match. Like, we just went through Goldberg's retirement match. It's like so normal for us. But in like the pre-Flair time, it wasn't always guaranteed. And to your point, I don't think
even Austin didn't have one.
Austin didn't have one, but then he ended up having the Owens match, which is weird, right? Like they eventually did.
Well, at this time in 2006, right? Yeah.
Right. So it's just like you wouldn't think Hogan this was it for him, right? He looked like, watching the match, I mean, it's not his best match by any stretch of the imagination.
2.25. I gave it. That's what I gave it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I've never actually watched it back. I only have the live memories. And I'll tell you what the live memory is. The live memory is the match. It's the pose down. It's Hogan in Boston, in the old stomping grounds, just, soaking up the adulation. I remember being really into it, and just, it was a really, like I said, at the time, kind of a full circle moment, because he main evented the first show I ever went to but he was a heel, so we were booing him. Remember the WCW crowds always threw shit in the ring. So
Yes.
there was a lot of fucking shit being thrown into the steel cage when the Outsiders came out to help Hogan. And so to go from all that shit that I remember being thrown into the cage to just everyone being on their feet for the pose down, I don't know. It was just really cool. And it's something I brought it up to my brother many times. Like, we were there for Hogan's last match because, like you said, it's not promoted.
It's the middle of the card. You don't even think of it.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't even think about it. Like I said, I do think that Vince, everyone would have thought he had one more in him, but it's just how it happened.
Well, the rumor always was WrestleMania 23, Austin and Hogan, right? In Detroit, 20 years later, brother. The biggest match since. I always thought we were going to get it, but we never did, right? So.
No, we never did get that match, it is a shame. But, I think, overall, just it was a really good run. I'm glad. It's funny. And I'll shout out, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne, big heavy metal guy. So, another, guy we lost this week. But I remember when Eddie Van Halen died, I read this post. Van Halen's my favorite guitarist, favorite band. You have to remember, think of all these, tens of thousands of years that humans have been on this planet. We were fortunate enough to live at the same time as Hollywood Hulk Hogan and get to watch him live. That is, I'm very grateful for that I got to see the Hulkster in his prime in WCW. It means a lot to me.
So, yeah.
Like your dad. Because I'm 8, I couldn't do that on my own. So thank you to my father for doing that.
So we're at the end here, Marty. I asked you for your opinion on Hulk, and full circle. I'm personally glad I was able to kind of let my guard down and not get the personal shit get in the way, and just really reminisce on him for this last 60 to 90 minutes. It's been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's separating the art from the artist, right? Terry Bollea might not have been, he probably wasn't the greatest person, but the Hulk Hogan was the guy on the screen. The one thing I'll always say about professional wrestling that's so unique to wrestling, right, is we watch these guys week in, week out, and, it can be a little weird probably discussing it with other people, but, they become part of your family. I've known Hogan and, the people from 97 longer than I've known pretty much all my friends. Outside of my family, these are the people I've known, week in, week out, providing the entertainment, watching them on the TV. It's a tough loss.
It is. It's a good way of putting it too, That's a good way to kind of put just kind of good way to put your eyes on it and talk about it that way. Because honestly, that's what it is. It's not not that you want to take it too personal, but it is what it is. So
and they shaped you. I'll say this one last thing. I was a very shy child growing up.
I don't believe you. 37 minutes later, I do not believe you.
A lot of people say that, and I didn't really get out of my shell until middle school, high school, and I made friends then. But growing up and seeing specifically Hogan, for every reason, always sticks in my mind. Being able to cut those promos in front of tens of thousands of people, it really changed me. It really showed me how somebody could just connect with people and be confident enough to speak their opinion and what have you. So, no, it really did change my life.
So it's a good way to put it, Marty. It was good to have you on here. Too bad of the circumstances, but we'll have to do this again, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I actually, as soon as I heard the news, I was like, I just want to talk about him. I just need to talk about him. So thank you so much for reaching out. I really appreciate it, brother.
Guys, thank you. We'll see you sooner than later.